I have permission from Balaram Das to do a special pre-Gorponim class. So today I will be speaking from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, hopefully to get us into the nice mood for tomorrow's Gorponim festivities. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So, the first thing is a excerpt from an explanation found in the Antya Leela. Prabhupada explains, the word Panjitika means further explanations of a subject. Writing such explanations is likened to the process of fluffing out cotton. So I'm using that as a means of how I compiled my class for today. So in the Madhya Leela, chapter 10, there is the description of the arrival of Swarup Damodar joining Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri. Swarup Damodar also arrived the next day. He was a very intimate friend of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was an ocean of transcendental mellows. When Swarup Damodar was residing at Navadvip, under the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his name was Purushottam Acharya. After seeing that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the renounced order, Purushottam Acharya became like a madman and immediately went to Varanasi to take sannyas. At the conclusion of his sannyas, his spiritual master, Chaitanya Nanda Bharati, ordered him, read the Vedanta Sutra and teach it to all others. Swarup Damodar was a great renunciant as well as a great learned scholar. With heart and soul, he took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. He was very enthusiastic to worship Sri Krishna without disturbance, and therefore, almost in madness, he accepted the sannyas order. And upon accepting sannyas, Purushottam Acharya followed the regulative principles by giving up his tuft of hair and sacred thread, but he did not accept the saffron-colored dress, and also he did not accept a sannyasi title, but remained as a Naishtika brahmachari. After taking permission from his sannyas guru, Swarup Damodar went to Nilachala and accepted the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then, all day and night, in ecstatic love of Krishna, he enjoyed transcendental mellows in the loving service of the Lord. Swarup Damodar was the limit of all learned scholarship, but he did not exchange words with anyone. He simply remained in a solitary place, and no one could understand where he was. Sri Swarup Damodar was the personification of ecstatic love, fully cognizant of the transcendental mellows in relationship with Krishna. He directly represented Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his second expansion. If someone wrote a book or composed verses and songs and wanted to recite them before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar would first examine them and then correctly present them. Only then would Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu agree to listen. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was never pleased to hear books or verses opposed to the conclusive statements of devotional service. The Lord did not like hearing rasa abasa, the overlapping of transcendental mellows. It was the practice of Swarup Damodar Goswami to examine all literatures to find out whether their conclusions were correct. Only then would Swarup Damodar allow them to be heard by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Swarup Damodar used to read the poems of Vidyapati and Chandidas and Jayadev Goswami's Sri Gita Govinda. Swarup Damodar used to make Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very happy by singing these songs. Swarup Damodar was as expert as a musician as the Gandharvas, and in scriptural discussion, Swarup Damodar was just like Brihaspati, the priest of the heavenly gods. Therefore, it is to be concluded that there was no great personality quite like Swarup Damodar. Sri Swarup Damodar was very dear to Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu, and Swarup Damodar was the life and soul of all the devotees, headed by Srivas Thakur. So when Swarup Damodar came to Jagannath Puri, he fell flat before the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, offering Lord Chaitanya obeisances and reciting the following verse. So this is why I did this preliminary explanation of Swarup Damodar, just so that we would approach this verse very, very seriously. So here's the verse. Helod hunita kedaya vishadaya pronmilad amodaya shyam yachchastra vivadaya rasadaya chitra priton madaya shasvad bhakti vinodaya samadaya madhurya maryadaya Sri Chaitanya daya nidhi tavadaya bhuyad amandodaya. So the word Daya Nidhi, O ocean of mercy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhuyat Amanda Udaya, let there be an awakening of your auspicious mercy. Hela Udhunita Kedaya, which easily drives away all kinds of material lamentation. Vishadaya, by making everything pure and blissful. Indeed, Pronmilat Amodaya, your mercy awakens transcendental bliss and covers all material pleasures. And by your auspicious mercy, Shamyat Shastra Vivadaya, quarrels and disagreements arising among different scriptures are vanquished. Rasadaya Chitta Arpita Unmadaya, your auspicious mercy pours forth transcendental mellows and thus causes the heart to jubilate. Shashvat Bhakti Vinodaya Sa Madaya, your mercy, which is full of joy, always stimulates devotional service. Madhurya Maryadaya glorifies conjugal love of God. Daya Bhuyat Amanda Udaya, may transcendental bliss be awakened within my heart by your causeless mercy. So here is Prabhupada's purport to this beautiful verse, which we just heard, composed by Swarup Damodar, glorifying Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada writes, this important verse from Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka specifically describes Lord Chaitanya's causeless mercy. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the most magnanimous personality of Godhead, distributes his causeless mercy in three ways to the conditioned soul. So I tried to do some research on that, and this is what I came up with. So I'm adding to Prabhupada's purport here. So it says that he distributed causeless mercy in three ways. So what I found was Sakshat Darshana, by direct meaning. Number 2, Avesha, empowering a perfect devotee with specific spiritual potencies. And number 3, Avirbhav, appearing himself. And then I found that this Avirbhav was in 4 places. In the house of Srimati Shachi Mata. Number 2, wherever Nityananda Prabhu danced in ecstasy. Number 3, the house of Srivas when Kirtan was performed. And number 4, the house of Raghava Pandit. Now the purport continues. Every living entity is morose in the material world because he is always in want. One undergoes a great struggle for existence and tries to minimize his miserable condition by squeezing the utmost pleasure out of this world. But the living entity is never successful in this endeavor. While in a miserable condition, a person sometimes seeks the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But this is very difficult for materialistic people to obtain. However, when one becomes Krishna conscious by the grace of the Lord, the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord expands, and in this way, a materialist may gain freedom from one's miseries. Actually, one's mind is cleansed by transcendental connection with the lotus feet of the Lord. At such a time, one is enlightened by the loving service of the Lord. There are many different kinds of scriptures, and by reading them, one often becomes puzzled. But when one receives the mercy of the Lord, one's confusion is mitigated. Not only are scriptural disparities resolved, but a kind of transcendental bliss is awakened, and in this way one is fully satisfied. The transcendental loving service of the Lord constantly engages the conditioned soul in serving the Lord's lotus feet. Through such fortunate engagement, one's transcendental love for Krishna is increased. One's position is thus completely purified, and one is filled with transcendental bliss, accompanied by the spirit soul's jubilation. Thus, the transcendental causeless mercy of Lord Krishna is manifest in the heart of the devotee. At such a time, material needs no longer exist. The lamentation that invariably accompanies material desires also vanishes. By the grace of the Lord, one is elevated to the transcendental position, and then the transcendental mellows of the spiritual master are manifest in one. One's devotional service then becomes firm, and one engages in the Lord's transcendental loving service with great determination. All these combine to fully awaken the devotee's heart with love of Krishna. In the beginning, a conditioned soul is bereft of Krishna consciousness and is always morose in his material activities. Later, by associating with a pure devotee, one becomes inquisitive to know the absolute truth. In this way, one begins to engage in the transcendental service of the Lord. Next, by the Lord's grace, all misconceptions are vanquished, and the heart is cleansed of all material dirt. It is only then that the pleasure of transcendental bliss is awakened. By the Lord's mercy, one is completely convinced of the value of devotional service. When one can see the pastimes of the Lord everywhere, he is firmly situated in transcendental bliss. Such a devotee is relieved of all kinds of material desires and preaches the glories of the Lord all over the world. These Krishna-conscious activities separate one from material activities and the desire for liberation, because at every step the devotee feels himself connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although such a devotee may sometimes be involved in household life, he is untouched by material existence due to one's constant engagement in devotional service. Thus, everyone is advised to take shelter of devotional service to become happy and liberated. So now there are some nice verses which will again hopefully put us in a good frame of mind so that we are fully ready for tomorrow's Gaura Purnima. Of course, the famous verse from the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Varnang Tvisha Krishnang Sango Pangashtra Parshadam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayayar Yajanti Hi Sumedasa. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. Then I found this nice verse by Rupa Goswami in his Stavamala. Kalau yang vidvangsa sputam abhiyajante duty barad a krishnangang krishnang maka vidibir utkirtanam mayai upasyang chang prahuryam akila chaturtashrama jushang sadevas chaitanyakritir atitarang na kripayatu. By performing the sacrifice of congregational chanting of the holy name, learned scholars in the age of Kali worship Lord Krishna, who is now non-blackish because of the great upsurge of the feelings of Srimati Radharani. He is the only worshipful deity for the Paramahamsas, who have attained the highest stage of the fourth order, sannyas. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya, show us his great causeless mercy. And then also in the Stavamala of Rupa Goswami, in his Chaitanyashtakam, he composes this verse. Smita loka shokam harati jagatang yasya parito girang tu prarambha kushala patiling palavayati padalambha kang va pranayati nahi prema nivaham se devas chaitanya kritter atitarang na kripayatu. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the form of Lord Sri Chaitanya, bestow his causeless mercy upon us. His smiling glance at once drives away all the bereavements of the world, and his very words enliven the auspicious creepers of devotion by expanding their leaves. Taking shelter of his lotus feet invokes transcendental love of Godhead at once. And then also from the Chaitanyashtaka from the Stavamala of Rupa Goswami. Sadopasya Sriman Ritta Manuja Kayai Pranayatang Vahadbir Gir Vanar Girishi Parameshti Prabrahitibi Swabhaktevya Shuddhang Nija Bhajanam Mudram Upadishan Sat Chaitanya King Me Punar Api Drishor Yasyati Padam. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always the most worshipable deity of the demigods, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, who came in the garb of ordinary men, bearing love for him. He instructs his own pure devotional service to his own devotees. Will he again be the object of my vision? Now, in the Adi Leela chapter 3, there is a nice series of verses helping us to understand Lord Chaitanya. Krishnadas Kaviraj says, Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya is the initiator of Sankirtan, congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. One who worships him through Sankirtan is fortunate indeed. Such a person is truly intelligent, whereas others, who have but a poor fund of knowledge, must endure the cycle of repeated birth and death. Of all sacrificial performances, the chanting of the Lord's holy name is the most sublime. One who says that 10 million Ashvamedha sacrifices are equal to the chanting of the holy name of Lord Krishna is undoubtedly an atheist. He is sure to be punished by Yamaraj. In the auspicious introduction to the Bhagavat Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami has given the following verse as an explanation. Antak Krishnang Bahir Gaurang Darshitangadi Vaibhavam Kalau Sankirtanadya Isma Krishna Chaitanyam Ashrita. I take shelter of Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is outwardly of a fair complexion, but is inwardly Krishna himself. In this age of Kali, he displays his expansions, his angas and upangas, by performing congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And there's a very nice purport to this verse. Prabhupada writes, Srila Jiva Goswami has placed the above verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, which we chanted, Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam, as the auspicious introduction to his Bhagavat Sandarbha or Shat Sandarbha. He has composed this text, which is in effect an explanation of the Bhagavatam verse, as the second verse of the same work. The verse from Srimad Bhagavatam was enunciated by Karabhajana, one of the great sages, and it is elaborately explained by the Sarva Sangvadani, Jiva Goswami's commentary on his own Shat Sandarbha. The word Antak Krishna refers to one who is always thinking of Krishna. This attitude is a predominant feature of Srimati Radharani. Even though many devotees always think of Krishna, none can surpass the gopis, among whom Radharani is the leader in thinking of Krishna. Radharani's Krishna consciousness surpasses that of all other devotees. Lord Chaitanya accepted the position of Srimati Radharani to understand Krishna. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya was always thinking of Krishna in the same way as Radharani. By thinking of Lord Krishna, Lord Chaitanya always overlapped Krishna. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who was outwardly very fair, with a complexion like molten gold, simultaneously manifest his eternal associates, opulences, expansions, and incarnations. Lord Chaitanya preached the process of chanting Hare Krishna, and those who are under his lotus feet are glorious. So before I continue, if Dravida Das is in the audience, when I finish my class, I would beg to ask him the meaning of this phrase. By thinking of Lord Krishna, Lord Chaitanya always overlapped Krishna. So when I finish, if Dravida is there, I hope that he can explain it, because I could not understand that. By thinking of Lord Krishna, Lord Chaitanya always overlapped Krishna. Let me finish. Srila Jiva Goswami explains. So this is the purport to the Bhagavatam verse. I didn't know if I'd have enough time, so I put it at the end. So this is the Chaitanya Charitamrita purport to the famous Bhagavatam class verse. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that Krishna Varna means Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Krishna Varna and Krishna Chaitanya are equivalent. The name Krishna appears with both Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya Krishna. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Lord Chaitanya always engages in describing Krishna and thus enjoys transcendental bliss by chanting and remembering Krishna's name and form. Lord Krishna himself appears as Lord Chaitanya to preach the highest gospel. Lord Chaitanya always chants the holy name of Krishna and describes it also. And because Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, whoever meets Lord Chaitanya will automatically chant the holy name of Krishna and later describe it to others. Lord Chaitanya injects one with transcendental Krishna consciousness, which merges the chanter in transcendental bliss. In all respects, therefore, Lord Chaitanya appears before everyone as Krishna, either by personality or by sound. Simply by seeing Lord Chaitanya, one at once remembers Lord Krishna. One may therefore accept Lord Chaitanya as Vishnu Tattva. In other words, Lord Chaitanya is Lord Krishna himself. Sango Bhangashtra Parshadam further indicates that Lord Chaitanya is Lord Krishna. Lord Chaitanya's body is always decorated with ornaments of sandalwood and with sandalwood paste. And by Lord Chaitanya's super excellent beauty, Lord Chaitanya subdues all the people of the age. In other words, in other descents, the Lord sometimes used weapons to defeat the demoniac. But in this age, the Lord subdues them with his all-attractive figure as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that Lord Chaitanya's beauty is his astra, or weapon, to subdue the demons. Because Lord Chaitanya is all-attractive, it is to be understood that all the demigods lived with Lord Chaitanya as his companions. Lord Chaitanya's acts were uncommon, and Lord Chaitanya's associates wonderful. When Lord Chaitanya propagated the Sankirtan movement, Lord Chaitanya attracted many great scholars and acharyas, especially in Bengal and Orissa. Lord Chaitanya is always accompanied by his best associates like Lord Nityananda, Advaita, Gadadhar, and Srivas. Srila Jiva Goswami cites a verse from the Vedic literature which says that there is no necessity of performing sacrificial demonstrations or ceremonial functions. He comments that instead of engaging in such external, pompous exhibitions, all people, regardless of caste, color, or creed, can assemble together and chant Hare Krishna to worship Lord Chaitanya. Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam indicates that prominence should be given to the name of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya taught Krishna consciousness and chanted the name of Krishna. Therefore, to worship Lord Chaitanya, everyone should together chant the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. To propagate worship in churches, temples, or mosques is not possible because people have lost interest in that. But anywhere and everywhere, people can chant Hare Krishna. Thus, worshiping Lord Chaitanya, they can perform the highest activity and fulfill the highest religious purpose of satisfying the Supreme Lord. Srila Sarvabhauma Bhatta Acharya, a famous disciple of Lord Chaitanya, said, "The principle of transcendental devotional service having been lost, Sri Krishna Chaitanya has appeared in order to deliver again the process of devotion." Lord Chaitanya is so kind that Lord Chaitanya is distributing love of Krishna. Everyone should be attracted more and more to Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, as humming bees are attracted to a lotus flower. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, I see Dravida is there. Maybe he can help with the explanation of that line that I could not understand.